Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025, and our friend Larry Johnson is back with us. Welcome back, Larry.
I'm glad to be here. Thank God the world has not blown up yet.
Larry, how do you define the current sort of relationship, we can call it, or sort of attitude on the part of Donald Trump toward Israel? They're trying to negotiate with Hamas without considering Israel, it seems, as we've learned. How do you evaluate that?
Well, on the surface, the way the story is being told in public, it's like that talk your girlfriend in high school had with you. Say, Nima, I think we need to start seeing other people. What? Yeah. The at least the public reporting is that there is a rift that has developed. That Donald Trump has had about all of Bibi Netanyahu that he can stand. That he particularly resents what he believed is Bibi Netanyahu's manipulation of him. Duh. Really took you that long to figure that out, huh, Donald? There you go. That's amazing. But there seems to be some truth to it. The combination of Mike Waltz getting bounced from the National Security Council as the National Security Advisor, just this, and then he's moved to be, they're going to put him in some low-level position at the UN. I mean, UN, the UN rep, but the way it was done, and then followed up by the White House actually leaking, talking to reporters about why it was done. Then you had the agreement with the Houthis, where the United States reportedly didn't say a thing to the Israelis about it. Then you've also had Trump order the B-2 bombers back to the United States out of Diego Garcia. And again, they were at Diego Garcia for show because the reality is those bombers can fly out of their base in Missouri, my old home state, and reach Iran. So where the bombers are located really isn't critical. Then you get this news of a hostage release that an American-Israeli dual citizen, and that apparently this was negotiated direct with Qatar, Egypt, and Hamas, and Israel wasn't told anything about it. And then you have Bibi Netanyahu said, "Oh, well, we'll just have to learn to live without U.S. security assistance." Oh, from your mouth to God's ears. I hope that's true. Because if that's true, the genocide's going to stop, and Israel is going to have to find another way forward other than being the most malicious, malevolent country on the block.
Let me play a clip, Larry, for you. Here is Netanyahu talking about his strategy, long-term strategy he had long on the part of Israel and Netanyahu. And do you think that his trip he's going to go to Saudi Arabia? Many people are speculating on what would happen, what Donald Trump would do. Do you think, I don't see any sign that he could convince Saudi Arabia in order to recognize, to normalize the relationship with Israel or without having a Palestinian state? What are the main objectives on the part of the Trump administration for this trip, for this
Oh,
visit to
yeah.
Saudi Arabia?
I have no idea. I mean, not, make Donald Trump look good. That's the primary objective. Give him a victory, something he can claim. Look what I did. Okay, so he's already got one of those accomplished. He got the release of this dual citizen, this American-Israeli citizen that has been held by Hamas. And kid's supposed to be released in about an hour, I think. And then they're going to fly him off to Doha, I believe. And Trump's going to have a boast. Look what I did. Look, yeah, I'm great. you know, in the ideal world, the Saudis would have enough courage and conviction to tell Trump, look, if you want to have normal relationships with us, you've got to stop the genocide in Israel. You've got to stop supplying those bombs, and you've got to insist that humanitarian assistance be taken to the Palestinian people. And if you do that, and then Israel recognizes a Palestinian state, then we'll recognize Israel. You know, that would be the kind of deal that you would construct in an elaborate fantasy novel. Now, is that going to happen? I doubt it. Boy, I'd love to be surprised. And people say, see, you were wrong, Johnson. Hey, great. If I could be wrong about things that bring peace to the world and stop the needless slaughter of these innocents, then, great. I don't have an ego invested in this.
Witkoff, by the way, he said to Israeli media that they want to release the hostages, but the government in Israel doesn't let them to put an end to the conflict.
Yeah.
How we know who's Witkoff, and he definitely supports Israel. But the Israel he supports is totally different, it seems, that from what Netanyahu wants Israel to be.
Yeah, let's call him, he supports what I'd call the 70s, 80s version of Israel, where it was dominated primarily by, let's call them Europeanized Jews with come out of a sort of a European point of view. Because now what has become dominant in Israel are these scriptural literalists. They believe that the Torah is the inviolate word of God, and that this land is our land, and these other people are the Amalek, and they must be destroyed, and we get from the river to the sea. That's our land, not theirs. And there is no reasoning with people like that. I mean, I've known people like that throughout my life. Once folks get seized with a religious conviction, and it's not based in rational thought, it's emotion. They've convinced themselves that God wrote this down in this book. With this, God chose us, and we've got to abide by the word of God, and therefore we can do whatever we want in the name of God, and it's okay. It's demonic is what it is, if you're going to put it in spiritual terms. But, that's what's taken hold of Israel now. So, Witkoff, they're still a segment. I think they are now a minority segment in Israel, or less than 50%, but that are in what we'd call the rational camp. But even in that rational camp, you've got a large number that want to be rid of the Palestinians. It started in 1948, where they were basically run out of Ashkelon and forced into the Gaza Strip. And then they tried to, rebuild their lives from there, and now Israel's making it clear they want to knock down every building, turn the place into a moonscape, and force these people to leave. They're going to have to leave in the Bibi Netanyahu world.
This attitude of exchanging hostages is somehow happening at the same time that Netanyahu is talking about attacking Gaza and just destroying everything, making the land the way that they cannot be able to live on. How do you think that Donald Trump still has the cause to force Netanyahu, or he just feels that he can find his way of dealing with Hamas in terms of American hostages, and then let bring them back. Don't care about what Israel would do.
Well, Trump, the United States, clearly holds the Trump card. I'm not talking about one of Donald Trump's, side business ventures to rake in some more cash, but the United States' role in supplying Israel with financial aid and military aid is critical. Israel can't live without it. Without it, Israel is, extremely vulnerable. The tensions that are already present in Israeli society, they're growing, not diminishing. So Trump is in a position really to dictate some terms here and force some changes. Whether he'll do it or not is a whole nother matter. I mean, the guy is not exactly, with respect to Israel and these affairs, been a profile in courage. So, I hope to be very surprised by what he does. I think he takes off. He either took off yesterday or he's taking off today. And the meetings in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and United Arab Emirates will, I guess the Qataris already offering to give him a new presidential jet. So maybe he'll reciprocate by throwing Israel under the bus.
Witkoff is in Israel. He's talking with the officials in Israel. It seems that he wants to do the same thing that he did before Donald Trump coming to office. Do you think that at this particular time that would be easier or harder to do that?
The United States, it's easier from his standpoint that they're in a position that the United States, can dictate terms to Israel, not the other way around. The political reality in the United States is shifting. We've gone from where there was overwhelming support for the state of Israel to, thanks in large part because of social media, people are seeing the images of all these dead children, these murdered civilians, and these thugs, these settlers, who they're like gangs that go out and attack, people in their homes and on their land. So right now, the growing number of people under the age of 50 despise Israel. And that's a problem for Israel going forward, because going forward, they're not going to be able to count on buying off every American politician. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene have been particularly courageous in this regard, speaking out. What's taking place is serious when, here's Mike Huckabee, who, he's not Jewish, but by God, he pretends to be more Jewish than any Israeli out there, and insisting that there's no such thing as a Palestinian and Israel's got a right to all this land. And the other day he said basically, we don't have to tell Israel anything about what we're doing with the Houthis. And I was like, what? So we can, at some point, Israel's financial grip on the United States through bribery has got to come to an end. And even for the sake of Israel, because it's really turned them into a criminal state. They have made themselves pariahs in the world. I saw one video from Vietnam. There was this, Jewish family in Saigon, and once the restaurant owner realized they were Jews, he said, "Get the hell out! I'm not serving you." So the very thing that they claim that they want to avoid, which is to be singled out and persecuted, they're bringing it upon themselves now.
Larry, when we look at the way that Donald Trump has decided to somehow get along or make a deal with Yemen, and right now they're talking about Hamas. And his visit to the Middle East, he's not going to visit Israel. And Pete Hegseth, he planned to go to Israel, but he canceled that plan. He said that later on, I may go to Israel. It seems that whatever is happening that we're not aware of is something under the surface that is happening, that somehow some sort of tensions between the two administrations. But is this tension coming from the Netanyahu's decision because Donald Trump is not happy? We know that he's willing to put an end to any conflict as soon as possible in his mind, but it's not in the mind of Netanyahu. That's not possible. That's why they're not getting along.
Hey, if you can put a musical track to your show, we get the appropriate music here. We get the Hollies. Something's happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. That would be a great song to put under this. I think maybe part of the impetus was the shellacking that the United States took in Yemen. So Trump and his team, were sitting around, yeah, man, we're going to show those Yemenis who's a tough guy. We're not a bunch of wimps like Biden and his crew. By God, they just haven't been hit hard enough. And so, we're great. We get back in the business of killing civilians. And we blow up a bunch of civilian sites. And yet the Houthis, instead of shooting down one Predator drone a month, now start shooting down one a week. And then on top of it, by the end of the fiasco, the U.S. has lost at least 3 FA-18 Hornets at $70-80 million a pop. So there's $250,000 between those 3 aircraft alone. And then when you add in the 15 drones lost during the Biden administration, plus 7 more drones lost during the Trump administration, that's 22. You come up with basically about $1 billion worth of lost equipment. And so I think it was that frustration, realizing, okay, this ain't working. And we got an escape route. This Sultan of Oman seems to be the key player, and he's a key player in getting the United States and Iran to talk and mediating that. I'm sure he's got the full support of Russia and China, and he's able to convince the United States that, look, you're going to come visit the Saudis. The Saudis, frankly, you're going to get a pretty frosty reception unless you can stop killing these Houthis, which is, the irony there is, go back 2 years, 3 years, the Houthis and the Saudis were at each other's throat. And so the Saudis have done a complete volte-face, reversal, turnabout in this regard, plus solidifying, cementing a new era of relationship with Iran. So I think, you take all of that together. There was a recognition at the Trump White House that if they want to have any kind of success, they're gonna have to change what they're doing, and part of that change is, now I'm not sure we call it lessening support for Israel, but at least not appearing in public to be, kissing Israel's rear end at every opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things that I do believe that the Trump administration is considering right now is how the reality of the Middle East has changed with the new sort of relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia. In that clip that Netanyahu was talking, and you see the way that he's picturing the Middle East, saying that the Arab states are getting closer to us and Iran is the enemy. It seems that it's totally the opposite way.
Yeah, absolutely the opposite. Well, look, this is still, I would argue, a consequence of the special military operation in Ukraine the attempt to isolate and destroy Russia, at the same time that the West was increasing its harsh rhetoric directed at China as an enemy, as a military power that must be conquered. When you brought Russia and China together into that partnership, and then they accelerated the development of BRICS as an alternative financial power in the world economy, where nations no longer were going to be held hostage by the U.S. dollar, that started a change, and it's been like a chain reaction, because Iran has been brought into BRICS. So just from an economic standpoint, Iran's actually in a better position now than it was 10 years ago when they were pressured into the JCPOA, that Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And other nations in the global south are, this is like a international version of the movie Broadcast, where people are throwing their windows open and yelling, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." And that's what there's a growing unity. A lot of U.S. policy over the last 70 years has been, let's call it a divide and conquer, promote conflict. If you think about it, the reason Nixon went to China was not because we loved the Chinese. They were just a tool to be used to go after Russia. When Iran and Iraq, when Iran, the Ayatollah, took over in 1979, then the United States set about provoking the war, encouraging the attack of Iraq on Iran. And at the same time, it was even stranger, is the United States was also providing some military aid to Iran. All we wanted was to see that the Iraqis and Iranians kill each other. God bless, man. The more of those Middle Eastern, trash that we can kill, the better. I mean, you see how cynical, how evil this is. And then, with respect to the Houthis and the Saudis, we wanted to provoke that war in order to go after Iran. So much, and then we're back to Ukraine and Russia, provoked by the United States. I mean, I love the concept of what my country was supposed to be, really dedicated to freedom and to liberty, and yet born out of depriving Native Americans of their land, and born in part with a legacy of slavery. Despite those evils, there was still at heart a concept of America being something better and different. But now we look at what it's become in the post-World War II era, and we're like a goddamn arsonist. We're running around setting fires and then, going in offering to sell fire insurance. So it's not just an isolated instance. So when we look at what's taking place now, I think there's a realization, maybe even a fear in Washington, that it's lost control of the narrative. That with Iran and the Saudis now pledging support to each other in some very, unprecedented ways, and with China and Russia flexing their muscle as well, and particularly this new relationship, comprehensive security agreement that Russia signed with Iran. I think Trump and company are playing catch up. In fact, I don't even think they fully appreciate how profound these changes are. We are in the early stages of the birth of a new world order. Whether it will usher in peace and prosperity for those who have been exploited for so many years, a whole nother question. But the ability of the United States to dictate and control, I think, is it's coming undone.
Yeah. Larry, we had the fourth round of talks between Iran and the United States. Both said that it was difficult but useful. And it's the situation. The foreign minister of Iran said that the talks are getting more serious. And what's your evaluation of, what's your take on what has happened in this round of talks between the two parties?
Well, the good news is they talked again. Okay, so that's there's a silver lining, and they're going to talk again. So there will be a fifth round. But now we come down to the heart of the issue, and from Iran, what Iran, I think, is willing to negotiate on is we will surrender all nuclear enrichment programs above 3.6%. That enriched uranium at those levels will be held by Russia, and our research and medical isotopes will get from Russia. But Iran is not going to eliminate a peaceful nuclear program, nor should it have to. The United States is insisting that, you got to stop it all. And while you're at it, get rid of those missiles and cut off contact with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. If that remains the U.S. position, there will be no agreement. And then the United States is going to, once again be faced with, or Trump in particular, he's made these threats. And if they dare to attack Iran, it will be the end of the Trump administration, because he will then be embroiled in a war that he cannot win. And these pundits that populate the airwaves over here who think that we can just waltz in and crush Iran and, oh, by God, it'll be over in a week or two, and haven't learned a damn thing from history. All these quick victories. I mean, going back to the Civil War, you had crowds of Washingtonians in carriages riding out to the Manassas battlefield. Oh, this is going to be great, man. We're going to crush the Confederacy. Didn't turn out that way. They lost that battle. Similarly, World War I was supposed to be over, in the snap of an eye, blink of an eye, I mean. Yeah, it's so, Vietnam, Iraq, mission accomplished. So this is one more disaster waiting to happen if they go down that route. So I don't think Iran is not in such a desperate strait that the United States can compel them to lose their entire nuclear program. The added advantage now is Iran's got China and Russia firmly in its camp. In the 2015 JCPOA negotiations, they did not. Both Russia and China each were sort of holding them at arm's length. Not now, because I think they all recognize that the game the United States has been playing is both malicious and destructive.
Larry, there is a very substantial and important division within the Republican Party as we talk. Some of them are supporting Israel and the way that Netanyahu wants the policy of the United States to be in the Middle East, and like Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz on Fox News, he said that
Graham,
Lindsey Graham, and these people want to destroy Iranian nuclear program. And we know that if the talks go in that direction, Iran said this is a red line. We're not going to do that.
Right.
We're going to limit it. We're going to limit enrichment of uranium, but we're not going to destroy it. And on the other hand, we have the people like you, Colonel McGregor, and even Scott Ritter, who voted for Donald Trump, but Tucker Carlson, but you don't want to go and make a new war in the Middle East. Here is what Colonel McGregor said in terms of a